Hey YouTube, welcome back to another video. If you want a lesson with me, check the link in the description. We'll work something out. Today is 4 trials by fire, all at the same time. Just kind of go bang through them real quick. I just had a whole bunch of rehearsal at Disneyland for a Disneyland band. And it's a nice controlled setting where I'm playing the same music over and over and over and over and over and over again with the same people in the same space. Inside, thankfully, and I got pretty bored of playing it on the same instrument, so I decided, in my professional opinion, that I could bring in other stuff and sound pretty good and, you know, not make a fool of myself and have a little more fun because I was playing on the same thing every time. And of course, this setting is kind of like a big band that stands up and plays. The other trombones are 3 small tenor trombones, and then I'm playing with 2 sousaphones. So a bit different setting than most things, but kind of you can think of it as kind of a big band setting. First instrument up is this guy. I took a couple instruments on one day, and this was one of them, my Holton TR185 with D-slide and second valve moved to a place where you can actually use it. I did just get this worked on, so now the paddle is closer to my finger, and the spring rate was bumped up so it returns very quickly, and it feels like a real bass trombone. It feels so good now. That was not done when I used it. Oh well. So how is this in that setting? In most ways, I think this is almost the ideal instrument, almost, asterisk, because it really wants to play with other tenor trombones. It just locks in the sound because it sounds so trombone-y. It has this great color, you know, some more breadth than a tenor trombone does. But that great core for the other trombones to kind of walk into and not just get fuzz from. It just, man, it works so well with other trombones. With the tubas, it's okay. It's a little bit lighter of a sound than I personally prefer. And it does have a nice chonky sound, but it just, there's something about, there's like lots to the middle, and then around that there's not quite as much as I would like. And with the tubas, it just didn't fit quite as well. The tuba player standing next to me was kind of like, yeah, you sound good on that, but not as good as some of the other stuff. The trombone players seem to enjoy it. So, good instrument. The low range is a little less open than I would like. Down around like D flat, C. I can play down there, I can make a good sound, but I can't just pop those notes out. I can't just nail them the same way that I can on most modern instruments. Also, it's dependent, and in that particular book, that's a pretty big drag. I use the second valve all the time. I mean, just everywhere. So I would never actually use this for like the entire day. But it was a nice experiment with it, and it did show me that as much as I can use dependent, man, I really do like using both valves. So, a good grade, but maybe not the perfect instrument. The second instrument I took was my silver-plated Corporation 50B with an Edwards slide, of course. I had that just previously in a video. I don't have it with me because it's at the repair guy. It's gonna torch off the bell and bang it out. It's gonna be great. And this one blew me away. It was so good. It does not play perfectly. It's, you know, pretty beat up. The valve feels awful to use, and it doesn't like blow very well either. It's super leaky. But man, the sound I got out of it, just that Bach sound that I guess I've been missing, that I didn't really know this entire time, just came out of the bell and just in spades. When I would lean into it and play loud, the Holton, you know, gets louder and it feels good. But this Bach, I would play louder and it would just go whoosh and fit in with the tuba and fit in with the trombones, and people would be like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And not all the instruments I play get that kind of response. And at the end of the day, I kind of had like the option, like which one of these should I use? And I was like, I'm going to use the Bach because it just felt so good. Of course, it's a single, so it's useless. I would not actually use that for the entire day there. Way too much stuff that needs 2 valves, especially that second valve, like I said. And I'm thinking, because it sounded so good, that I'm going to torch the bell off and put it on a better chassis and give it a real review, because honestly, blown away by that. And the tuba player next to me, he was like, yeah, dude, that's the sound I like to play next to, because it really fit in with the tuba, really filled out that sound, gave it a nice chonky front to the note. Man, I was blown away, because I thought it was going to be like okay and really hard to play, but it was really good and actually not nearly as hard to play as I thought it was going to be. So very surprising on that front. Number 3 is this guy. Of course, I just had this in the video yesterday. 50 T3L, not a stock valve section. This is aftermarket. And of course, I used Edwards slide because the slide it came with is not in good shape. I think it's the lower outer tube is bowed. Kind of does that, and that doesn't work very well for slide action. So might get a new tube for it. We'll see. Otherwise, it is in pretty good shape. And this one, of course, I bought the morning of and just decided to take it in and play it for most of the day, and was very pleasantly surprised. It played really well for basically everything. You think Thayers, Bach, L bell, and then commercial setting and 3 small tenor trombones doesn't work very well. It's not the perfect match. This is definitely a pretty wide sound, but it just works. The range above the staff works. I mean, I demonstrated that in the video yesterday, but that stuff works. It has a nice, easy articulation, a nice, quick front to the note. You'd think this would be slow to respond, just whoa. But no, it's got a nice front to the note. It's from behind the bell anyway. It's really easy to play like that. And of course, that sound with the Thayer valves. Oh man, I missed that sound. The sound that the Thayers add to the instrument. That was really enjoyable because I only play rotors there. I don't play these. And I was like, yes, I missed that. I don't think it's a perfect match. And in that setting, I probably wouldn't use this anyway. Even if it were my only choice, I would use it. But if I had some other thing, I would probably use that. But very pleasantly surprised to see that it just kind of worked. The tenor trombones were like, yeah, it's fine. The tuba player's like, it's a wider sound than he's used to. I think he preferred the silver-plated 50B. So that bell, I think, is going to end up on this. So, you know, not awesome in that setting, but really pleasantly surprised at how well it worked anyway. Last up is the Yamaha YBL830 Xeno bass trombone that Disney provides for me to use. The other bass trombonists in Disneyland Band bring their own instruments and they play those. I don't really want to risk my own instrument. Even though I had one made before, I was like, well, if they're going to provide one, I'll just use that. And it's not a bad idea because it is shiny. It's got a good slide. It's got good valves. It's in good shape. There's only a couple dings. It has really fast and quick response. So you can call that quack. It's the combination of those two things. Low range works. High range works. It's pretty easy to tune. I feel like third position is the worst thing for me to tune on that instrument, but that's probably me. It's pretty light, actually. It's got good ergonomics and it's pretty light, and light is definitely what you want when you're holding an instrument up for like 20 something minutes at a time. In all the regards that kind of matter, it's perfect. Gets the job done. You know, people around you are not like, what is that? They're just like, good, great, you're making a sound. And that's kind of what it does. It makes a sound. It is, if you Googled bass trombone sound, this is the stock photo that would come up. It'd be this instrument. It's so boring. It just inspires nothing at all. And it's not a bad sound. I'm not saying that it makes a bad bass trombone sound. It just doesn't make a good one. It's literally right there in the middle. It makes a bass trombone sound. And that's honestly why I brought these instruments in. I was so bored of playing it and hearing that just blah, blah sound every time. And even the tuba player next to me is like, yeah, that horn is way more boring than the other ones, huh? I was like, yes, thank you. I'm not the only one that thinks that. And that, honestly, is not the worst thing. There are quite a few players out there that want that. They want the instrument that gets out of the way, lets them do their own thing, make their own sound, and plays really easily. You know, it doesn't do anything to make their jobs harder. And it definitely does that. For me, though, I want to be inspired. I want to have fun when I play. That instrument just doesn't do it. I'll still do it. I'll still play it every day probably, but man, what a boring instrument. I would never buy one. I think there are some magic examples of the 830 out there. I've heard of a couple that are just like in the top, 0.1% of bass trombones that just sound amazing and play amazing. This one is, I would say, in the top 60%. Plays great and does nothing else. There are definitely some that play really badly and also don't sound good. And this one does the job and does nothing else. It's hard for me to put in words how boring it is to play. And for some people, again, that's great. And if that's you, that's valid. I need something more in my life. All right, well, that's it. 4 trials by fire, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.